Welcome to yet another episode of 5 Minutes with Brandon here, and I have yet another topic to touch on today, and I hope it blesses your week. Well, don't regret about the things that didn't work according to your plans, or rather, don't look back to yesterday that didn't really work according to how you wanted it to work for you. I'm going to touch on the fact that life, rather your journey with God, is like a race track. When you're running a race, you wouldn't pay heed to the distractions that are around you. Rather, you would run and look ahead. Your eyes ought to be set on the goal, rather the finishing point. That's how our journey with God ought to be. As you have experienced, that there are so many factors that really weigh us down, that sort of hampers our the pace at which we are even moving forward in the will of God. And there are these several factors, and of course, life is always not a bed of roses. There are always challenges along the way. But my point here is looking back and regretting on things that didn't work according to our plans will just not help us. I have two verses over here which you can put together and see if it makes sense to you. Proverbs 16:9 that reads, "A man's heart plans his ways, but the Lord directs his steps." So that's what happens with us. When we say the Lord directs our steps, that's clearly God, having His lordship in our life or over our lives. He's aware that there are some things that in our innocence and in our weakness that we would sort of end up in the wrong hands. And so what He does is He causes situations that appear to be, grievous or appear to be disappointing, but eventually we realize that it all worked out for our good. And then if I have to come to the New Testament, which is a very famous passage for all of us over here, it says in Romans 8:28, it says that, "And we know that all things work together for our good, to them work together for good, to them that love God and to them who are called according to His purpose." Now, here there's another important factor. It says things work out good for those who are called according to His purpose. And so, we all have to realize that not everybody is called, not everybody is chosen according to His purpose. Not everybody is saved. People ought to be saved. People ought to turn to Jesus. Not everyone is turned to Jesus. That's the truth. He's coming soon. So there are some of us, or a lot of us, who are aware that God has called us. We are aware that God is working in our life, and He wants us to sort of end up in the center of His will. My point here is we ought to embrace the situations that supposedly feel disappointing, the situations that supposedly feel that is not in our favor. We need to embrace those things and understand that God is directing our steps, although we plan our ways. But sometimes it's also important to remain in prayer, or rather to keep praying, or to sort of have God at work in your life. Sometimes if you have a prayerless life, or a life without prayer, you will just sort of notice that God is a little silent in your life, or you yourself will realize that you've sort of distanced yourself away from God because you have had your prayer very subtle. So that's the point here, that while we are of the understanding that God is at work and things may not appear to be in our favor, but eventually are in our favor, it's also important that we play our part from our side. We need to surrender to the Lord. We need to walk in His ways. We need to walk, uprightly. We need to walk in holiness. Far above all, we need to walk in holiness. We need to walk the way He wants us to walk. And so if we have a lot of these unwanted things that we sort of indulge in, that is actually hampering that is hampering God from having His will and ways in our life, then we will not see the goodness of His grace. We will not see His mercy in our lives. All in all, I want to say is Proverbs 16:9 and Romans 8:28 that says that things work for our good. We are so human sometimes that like little children, we sort of whine, we cry, and just like a little child cries if he's not given something that he wants, which is probably not right for him at this point, and maybe he needs to grow a little older to sort of be able to handle could be anything, could be a palatable thing, it could be a toy, it could be anything. But then eventually he knows that he wasn't given, he didn't receive it at that point because he wasn't really prepared. He wasn't grown up or mature enough to understand what the thing meant. Likewise, that's the same with God. If things do not appear be in our favor, that's not God saying no. That's just God saying, my child, hold on, or you will eventually see the hand of God in your life. But you have to understand that there are some things that might not really be in your favor at this point, but definitely will add up to what God has really for you. I hope I've done my best here, and if there's anything that you would like me to sort of touch on, please do comment in the comment section below. I'm definitely open to feedback, and have a blessed week, and I'll see you in my next video.